So I recently finished revisiting Blue Reflection Second Light, and damn, my life feels empty right now. I think I spent a bit too much time these past few days playing this game that I feel the urge to replace it with something else. Don't worry, I'm actually planning to write a new video about this series, but in the meantime, let's talk about something that a lot of people seem to be celebrating even though I'm not entirely sure why, which is the new California bill that forces publishers of digital goods to be more transparent about the conditions of the sale. The bill is called Consumer Protection False Advertising Digital Goods, and it basically enforces publishers when they sell a digital good, they should disclose in plain sight with a clear statement before a transaction is completed that if you pay this, you will not have permanent access to it. Now, people seem to be happy about this, and to be fair, I do believe it's a good law. I think following this, consumers may make more informed decisions. At the very least, it might finally end the annoying, misinformed discussions of physical versus digital media, because now once they start realizing that physical media almost never have any disclaimers that you don't have unrestricted access while digital media constantly has it, it's gonna be very funny seeing people who will continue to try to argue that you don't own your physical media, even though the publishers themselves are telling you that you do. Unless, of course, they all decide to fuck over physical media for good and make all of the depending on an online chat just out of spite. But as of today, 90%, maybe even more than that, are playable offline. Trust me, I've been playing Stellar Blade with my PS5 completely disconnected from the internet without any patch, so I know what I'm talking about. Now, if you ask me, I don't think this bill is actually gonna fix anything because the problem of ownership is still there. Like, the only way I can maybe see this having an impact would be if, for example, you are someone that owns a PS5 and you have to pick between buying Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation Store or at a retailer. You see, I can imagine that maybe this law might incentivize people to lean more towards the physical version of Spider-Man 2 if on the PlayStation Store they see a giant prompt telling them that they basically don't own the game, while the same isn't true when they buy the physical copy. So from that angle, I can imagine there being some positive change. But what if we start migrating to a world where physical media is practically gone? For example, PC and possibly in the upcoming generation, Xbox. What will this law do to help these players? They have no other option other than buying digital games. So they're gonna do it. They're still gonna spend money on things that they don't own. And that's the problem. Every market right now is heading in this direction. I mean, cars nowadays are having certain basic features locked behind DLCs and subscription services like heated seats. Why? Because everything is becoming so digitalized and connected to online servers that we are becoming beholden to these companies. And that's the fucking problem. It's unfair, it's dystopian, and it goes against basic consumer rights. Also, I want to briefly tackle this topic of purchasing versus licensing because it's kind of pissing me off just how often people like to make a distinction between these two. Like, I remember when the discussions of Stop Killing Games were at their peak, that people were suggesting that storefronts like Steam, instead of having a buy button, they should have a button saying license. So I'm going to explain to you all something about commercial media. Throughout our entire livelihoods, we've been buying licenses. Even back when digital goods didn't exist, hell, even before digital content distributed in optical media existed, even back during the vinyl period, even back when our only form of home entertainment was reading books printed in plain papers, we've been buying licenses. Every single commercially distributed copyrighted media is sold to you as a license. Even things that don't have copyright ties, like open source software, are also distributed to you with a license, like GPL, MIT, etc. This isn't the thing that makes online digital goods unique from, for example, physical media. This copy of Yakuza 0 was sold to me as a license to play the game. This copy of Yakuza 0 was also sold to me as a license to play the game. So what makes this different from this? Well, the answer to that is how it was distributed. That is the source of the problem. Because as an example, GOG, I have no problems with them. Why? Because even though they're also selling me a license to play the game, the copy that they give to me is not tied to their servers. It's not tied to any server, as a matter of fact, not even from the developers. It doesn't require me to verify my ownership using a serial key. They just give me the game files and let me do whatever the fuck I want. But when I buy games on Steam, I do have to verify the key ownership through their online servers. When I buy games on Epic, I do have to verify the key ownership through their online servers. When I buy games on the PlayStation Store, I do have to verify the key ownership through their online servers. So what does that mean? Plain and simple. It means that if they shut down their servers, delist certain games, revoke my entitlements, or ban my account, I no longer have access to the thing that I paid for. Because look, if PlayStation wants to ban me, I don't give a fuck. But why do I have to lose my games that I paid money for? Unfortunately, it's because the digital goods that they sell are tied to an ongoing service, which is the hosting and maintenance of the dedicated servers that power these storefronts. And as long as that's the case, these companies can have full control over the conditions of the license. They can alter the EULA contract as long as they're responsible for providing the service. And that's why I believe there should be laws that protect consumers against this shit, because we're now living in a world where goods that have the characteristics of a product and can easily be sold as products that the consumer should be able to own are now artificially redistributed under a service, not based on any real necessity to become a service, but just simply for the sake of publishers having more control over the market and the digital library that the consumers already paid money for. I mean, this law doesn't even prevent publishers from using the term buy or purchase. It says here, it shall be unlawful for a seller of a digital good to advertise or offer for sale a digital good to a purchaser with the terms buy, purchase, or any other term which a reasonable person would understand to confer an unrestricted ownership interest in the digital good, or alongside an option for a time-limited rental, unless either the following will occur. And then they list all the things that the publisher has to disclose. So in other words, publishers are still allowed to basically lie to consumers by tricking them into thinking that they're buying something. But in the end, they're not buying anything, you're just renting these games. This doesn't change the fact that under EU law, what these companies are doing is potentially illegal. What about the fact that the EU Directive 2019/720 clearly states that when a digital good is no longer functional and the trader refuses to provide any remedies in order for the good to reach its conformity, that the consumers should be entitled to a price reduction or a refund. Why am I not getting a refund when an online-only game gets shut down? Why am I not getting a refund when a game I paid for gets delisted and the mirror servers no longer work? Why are these companies not complying with this directive? That's a question that I have. And that's why I care a lot about the EU initiative from Stop Killing Games, because I feel like this campaign is the only one that's actually challenging EU law and trying to at least give us some answers as far as why we're not being protected as consumers. This feels so obviously illegal, and yet it's the norm. But anyway, I feel like I've said enough. Now look, if your standards for consumer law are so low that companies simply disclosing that you don't own the things that you pay for is enough for you, then sure, I guess maybe I can understand why this California bill might excite you. But for me, speaking as someone who also cares about privacy and data ownership, every single site that I visit nowadays blasts me with a prompt stating that I have to acknowledge the fact that my user data is basically being farmed and sold to advertisers, and sometimes they'll even give me an option to limit the amount of data that they can collect. And while sure, that's nice to see, has this actually solved the issue of our data being excessively abused? No. Motherfucker, I still see people clicking yes to allow websites to farm their data. Earlier in the video, I said that my PS5 is always disconnected from the internet. Do you want to know why I decided to do that? Because every fucking time I update this system, they change the settings without my permission to allow them to collect my data. So you know what? Fuck off. You're not touching the internet from now on. And that's how I see this California bill, if I'm being honest. It's not a solution for anything, and until then, I'm siding with Stop Killing Games, which I will link in the description of this video, the page that you can visit to sign the EU initiative, which is frankly the only campaign right now that actually has the potential to make a change. But anyway, that's all I have to share. Hope y'all doing well.